A very warm greetings to all of you. Today, we are going to start with a very interesting poem, The Ball Poem, written by John Berryman. This poem has been taken from the book First Flight of Class 10. Now, basically, this poem is talking about a child's feeling when he loses his ball. Now, for small children, we all know that they get connected to every small thing very easily, and losing it is a very big thing for them. So, how a child reacts and what lesson he learns from the ball which he loses. Let's move on. So, the author of this poem is John Ellen McAlpine Berryman, shortly known as John Berryman. He was an American poet and a scholar. He was born on October 25, 1914, and he died on January 7, 1972. He was a major figure in American poetry in the second half of the 20th century. As you can see, he existed in the 20th century and he was considered to be a very well-known writer. He was considered a key figure, lots of possession and recognition in the field of literature. His best-known work is The Dream Song. I would prefer all of you to read this. Before we start with the stanza-wise explanation of the poem, let's talk about the learning goals. This poem actually is trying to teach us, or we'll get to know, that to know about a small boy and his emotions. Definitely this poem is highlighting the emotion of a small boy, that what kind of feelings are arising in the small boy when he loses his ball. Second, to get the message that life is full of lessons. Every single thing which is happening in your life teaches you a lesson. It's upon you how you take the thing. Basically, the poet wants to tell us that whatever happens in your life, just let it go. Forget it. But learn the lesson from that happen, which is going to help you out throughout your life. And the third learning goal is to be aware about the fact that we must learn to accept losses in our life. There are many people who, after they lose something, they give up. They don't want to move on. They don't want to start a new chapter in their life. They stick to that loss. So that's not right. Life is beautiful. And this poem is going to teach you that we must accept the losses which are coming in our life. We need to stand up and we need to move ahead. Right? Now let's talk about the glossary, the difficult words of the poem. In the stanza, you will get to know an idiom. Oh, there are other balls. It's an idiom that tells us that we should not spend so much of time in worrying about any loss because there are many other things to come on your way. So any loss is not at all so important that we should waste so much of our time and energy on it. The second phrase is shaking grief. Now, shaking grief means sadness which greatly affects the boy. It is a kind of sad feeling that actually affects you very deep into your heart and you are not able to easily come out of it. The third word is rigid. Now, this is not a very new word. Rigid means one who is not ready to change, one who is not ready to accept any change in his life. And here in the poem, it means stiff, as the child is standing still, stiffly, and is not ready to move. To intrude on. This is again an idiom which means to interfere in someone's situation where you are not welcomed. Okay? So this is get to know that where if you're not invited, if your advice is not invited, no need to interfere in anyone's situation. A dime. A dime is a currency of US that is equal to 10 cents. Desperate. Desperate means hopeless. Lots of desires are there in your eyes, but you can't complete it out. So desperate here means hopeless. Epistemology of laws. This is an idiom which means the nature of laws. What are the logics and science behind the laws? How we have to tackle and handle the losses in our life. An epistemology word is a Greek word which means knowledge. So we get to know about the nature of laws through this word. After we have done the difficult words, let's move to stanza 1. Before I start with stanzas, let me tell you, this poem is a free verse poem. We have discussed in the previous poems also that a free verse poem means there is no rhyming scheme in the poem. The poem is free of rhyming schemes. Okay? It is also considered as the modern style of writing. So here we go. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. And ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. So in the first line, the poet is saying that he is observing that there is a boy who is playing with the ball and he has lost his ball. So now what he is going to do with it? What is he to do? I saw it go. So here the poet is saying that he saw that how the balls was merrily bouncing, was cheerfully bouncing on the floor. It was rolling on the street and it cheerfully went into the water. So actually the child is standing near a harbor. We all know what harbor is. It's a place where the ships and boats are parked. Okay. So the ball rolled and it went into the water of the harbor. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. So here the child is standing there staring at the ball and he is in such a situation that it's no use of saying that, oh, there are other balls. So as we have discussed in the glossary, oh, there are other balls means an idiom that this is not such a big loss that you have to worry so much, right? So here the poet is trying to say that the child is under the ultimate grief. He's shaking, his body is shivering due to that sadness. So at this situation where the child is very much into that grief, into that sad feeling, it's no use of telling him that don't worry, because he is not going to understand this, right? Let's talk about the poetic devices used in this stanza. In the first line, we have seen one vowel has been repeated 3-4 times, and that vowel is O. Boy, now, who, lost. In all these 4 words, the same vowel O has been repeated. So here, when the vowel is repeated 2 or more times in a sentence, we call it as assonance device. And of course, we have alliteration device here because you can see what and who. Both the words are starting with the same alphabet, W. So 2 devices have been used in the first line, that is assonance, the repetition of vowels, and alliteration, the repetition of consonant sounds. Moving to the next line, the first word which has been used here is the repetition of the same word, what. What. Here, what has been repeated twice in the same line. So we will consider it as a repetition device. But you can see what has also been repeated in the first line also. So what is a word which is being repeated in 2 lines continuously? So here we'll consider it as anaphora device, where the same word is repeated in 2 consecutive lines. I'm repeating. If the word is repeated in the same line, we call it as repetition device. But if the word is repeated in 2 or 3 consecutive lines, we call it as anaphora device. Now moving to the next line. Merrily bouncing down the street. then merrily over. By using the word merrily again and again, the poet is trying to create an image in our mind of how the ball is rolling down into the water. So here, imagery device has been used. And of course, we have the alliteration device, because you can see here T is the consonant which has been repeated more than 2 times, where the, then, there, again the. So T consonant has been repeated 4 times. So here it is alliteration device. Moving to the next one. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. Idioms are also a poetic device. So here the idiom, oh, there are other balls, has been used. I hope the stanza is clear. Let's move to the second one. As he stands rigid, trembling, staring down, all his young days into the harbor were. His ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball, is worthless. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possession people will take. So this stanza is actually very, very important and interesting. Let's see how. In the first line, the poet is saying that the boy is so much in shock as his ball has fallen down into the water that he's standing there still. He's standing there rigid, stiff. He's not moving. He's trembling with fear because his ball has lost. And he's staring down. He's looking continuously into the ball which has fallen down into the water. So, all these expression actually shows that the boy is very much into the shock, right? All his young days into the harbor world. Now here, actually the young days are the memories of the childhood of that small child. So, all his memories days, it means the ball which has fallen down into the harbor was having all his memories and feelings connected to it. So this line says that the boy has been having that ball for a very long time. That's why so many memories and feelings of the boy is being connected to the ball. And maybe that is the reason why boy is not able to give up. His ball went. I would not intrude on it. But the poet is saying that now the child's ball has lost. Child is in shock. Child is sad. He's trembling with fear. So the poet is not at all interested in intruding on him. We have just discussed in the glossary. Intrude on him means interfering in someone's situation, that too when you are not asked for. Forcefully, you are interfering in someone's situation. So the poet is saying that the child is in a worry, the child is in a shock, the child is sad. So at this situation, I don't want to interfere in his feeling. I don't want to interfere in his situation. So this is an idiom which has been used as a poetic device in this slide. A dime, another ball, is worthless now. Now the poet is saying that at this situation, when the child is completely into the grief of losing the ball, if I go and I tell him that take 1 dime, go and buy another ball, that will not do anything to the child. These lines are worthless for the child. The child is not going to be consoled by a dime or by giving him another ball, because that new ball will not replace the memories and feelings connected to the previous ball. So the poet is saying that giving a dime or giving another ball to the child is going to be worthless. He senses first responsibility. Now the poet is talking about the life lesson. He's saying that this is the situation when the child is going to learn the first lesson of life. And what is the first lesson? In a world of possession, people will take. And the first lesson is that in this world of possession again is an idiom, which means materialistic world, where nothing is eternal, everything is temporary. So the child is going to learn that in this world, in this materialistic world, things will be lost. People will take away my things. But he has to stand up and move ahead. He has to grasp, he has to understand the reality that what is mine today cannot be mine forever. It might be somebody else in the coming time. Okay, moving to the last stanza. Balls will be lost always, little boy. And no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning, well behind his desperate eyes, the epistemology of laws, how to stand up, knowing whatever man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up, right? So in this stanza, in the first line, again, the repetition device has been used because ball word has been repeated twice, right? So repetition device has been used. And alliteration, of course, because B word has been repeated 4 times in the stanza, in this line. Ball, B, boy. So B, alphabet, B's consonant has been repeated. So in the first line, we have 2 devices, repetition and alliteration. Moving to the next line, the poet is saying, no one buys a ball back. Now here the ball back means we are talking about that old ball, which is full of memories and emotions. So actually the poet is saying that once a ball is lost, once something which belongs to you is gone, you will never get the same thing again. Money can buy you materialistic things, but money is external. It is an outer thing. It cannot buy you memories and feelings and happiness. It can only give you the materialistic things. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. The poet is saying the child is hopeless here. The child is feeling sad because now he is not going to get the same ball back. He is not going to get the same memories and feelings back. And he is learning this lesson because it is a big lesson of life that you don't get the same thing back again. He is learning the epistemology of loss. He is learning that what is the logic behind losses. When we lose something, when something is gone out of our life, how we should behave, how we should react. He will also learn how to stand up, how to gather your courage and how to move on, how to forget what has happened in your life, knowing what every man must one day know. And the poet is saying that today the child is going to know a truth of life that every man is going to learn one or the other day. This lesson, everybody is going to learn some or the other. And most know many days how to stand. And after this learning, after this lesson, people will also learn that how to stand up, how to gather the courage, how to come out of this sad feeling, and how to move on. Right? Now, first line, we have already discussed it. Here we have repetition device and alliteration device. In the second line, again, repetition device is there because buys, ball, and back. B has been repeated 3 times. Okay. In the fourth line, in the fifth line, transfer epithet device has been used. We have already discussed in the previous poems that if one line is not completed in the same line, but it is carried to the second line or the next line, we call it as transfer epithet. Now the sentence is starting, knowing what every man must one day know and must know many days. So here this line is transferred to the next line. So we'll consider it as transferred epithet device. I hope it has made the things very clear. Now let's talk about the moral of the poem. This poem is going to teach us 2 very important morals of life. First, what belongs to you today might belong to someone else in the future. I'm repeating, what belongs to you today might belong to someone else in the future. And second is, accept the losses and changes and stand up and move. Whatever losses are there, whatever changes are coming in your life, accept it positively and gather the courage from it and move on. Learn a new lesson of life. So, my dear, I hope this poem, the poetic devices, the difficult words, everything is clear to you all. Thank you very much.